Hi, folks. I am feeling better. Thank you for your good wishes. It's so interesting. I rested a certain amount today, and it's so interesting the sort of culture of shame we have around resting. The entire day I wanted to rest, and I was tired. I actually could not really get to doing too much. Um, I am on the mend, and I am improving, and I think I even sound better than yesterday, and I certainly feel better than yesterday. But there was a fatigue, and it was interesting. I just could not completely allow myself to kind of relax guilt free, if that makes sense. And I was thinking about that, like the fact that the sun was out, made me feel like I should be doing things, and I should be getting done with things, and I should be achieving things, and I should be taking care of things. And Memorial Day is over, and it is Tuesday, and I couldn't. And as a result of which, I feel so much better and ready to go again. And I'm going to have a good night's sleep again tonight. And I have no doubt, given the trajectory of how I'm feeling, that I will be even better tomorrow, so to speak. But anyway, thank you for your good wishes. Um, Yesterday, of course, I did a video that was looking at um, aspects, the planets that would transit the sign of Gemini would make in the immediate future, but even looking ahead at the next 12 months or so, or till the end of the year. Um, and I did that for a reason. Today is supposed to be a weekly overview that is a little late. It really should have gone out on Sunday or Monday, but here it is, and it does give us a sense of what to look at. And a lot of what I'm going to say, I think to some extent we have an awareness of. Although I think it's always good to review some of the upcoming aspects. And then tomorrow, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Jupiter's transit through Gemini. All the other transits through Gemini that I was referencing, the Sun and Venus and Mercury and the new moon and ultimately Mars, these are sort of annual or every 2 year transits. Jupiter's transit through the sign of Gemini, of course, is more significant. And as a reminder, when I'm talking about things like transits through the sign of Gemini, I'm really talking about transits through the house in your birth chart occupied by the sign of Gemini. So if you have a particular rising sign, that sign goes into the first house, and every sign after that goes into the next house. So if you are a Taurus rising, it'll be Taurus in the first, Gemini in the second, Cancer in the third, Leo in the fourth, Virgo in the fifth, and so on. If you are Scorpio rising, you will have Taurus in the seventh and Gemini in the eighth, and you basically count out that way. So I'm talking about the houses in your birth chart, the house in your birth chart occupied by the sign of Gemini. As we contemplate the aspects of this week, as a reminder, we've got the slower moving planets in the following signs. We've got Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and Pluto is going to retrograde back into the sign of Capricorn between September and November of this year, finishing up its cycle of transformation since 2008 in Capricorn. And then in Aquarius after November of this year for a good 18, 19 years or thereabouts. So we've got Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, and it is so close to the sign of Capricorn that you can consider it in terms of its orbit and its influence as finishing up whatever it is that it has been doing in the sign of Capricorn since 2008, and also revisiting. Pluto entered along with the sun the sign of Aquarius on January the 20th, kind of revisiting the space. It especially between January 20th and February 20th, that it started. Pluto takes so long to go over a sign, it kind of goes forward and backwards and forward and backwards and forward and backwards, and that's what it's doing. Saturn and Neptune, of course, are in Pisces. Both these planets will be in important conversations with the planets that are going to go over the sign of Gemini, because the planets that are going to transit the sign of Gemini are going to square Saturn and Neptune. Saturn trying and working hard in a pretty real way to get us to stabilize and structure the house occupied by the sign of Pisces in our chart, where either we have been thinking about or contemplating moving in a more spiritual or artistic direction, in which case Saturn is asking us to take that seriously and put some plans into place and start executing on them, or else deal with a certain amount of loss or deception or gaslighting behavior and kind of put some structure around that. Recognize what is going on, recognize what we can do to act more wisely to prevent further destabilization. We've got Chiron and the North Node in the sign of Aries, the North Node in the sign of Aries, the South Node in the sign of Libra. We are meant to lean into the eclipses, the most important aspect at any given time. We had the last solar eclipse in the sign of Aries on April the 8th. It was conjunct Chiron to the minute. And that particular eclipse becomes present for us again as we head into the first 2 weeks of June. The week before and after June the 8th, I find always 2 months after the solar eclipse as bringing important developments related to that April 8th eclipse. And particularly if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you might feel the impact of that eclipse in the next couple of weeks, more than you did around April the 8th, while Mercury was retrograde. Wherever the eclipse of the North Node is where we're being called, where our expansion is, where our desire is, where our dream is, where our excitement is, where our adventure is. Always with the North Node, as I say, the North Node is asking us to lean in a certain direction. The South Node is asking us to release something in the house occupied by the sign of Libra, but always try to approach the North Node with a certain kind of grounded capacity, because the North Node has this the hunger and the desire and the sense of rightness that it creates, and the sense of the way it calls you can lead us to disregard economic and financial and emotional security boundaries. It just feels so right and so magical. Remember that with the North Node or Rahu in more traditional or older astrology, it was sort of it was sort of represented as the face of the hungry demon. It was the desire and the sense of calling and the sense of what is right for it. It has such craving associated with it. It feels so right, but it's also undeniable, and it is the direction that our growth. If we are not to stagnate, that is the direction we're meant to explore. Now, Chiron is going to play has been playing an important role over the past 10 days or so, and plays an important role this week, and I'll get to it. But Chiron has been trying to get us to heal something, come back to ourselves in a kind of primal way, sort something out that we've been carrying with us since childhood, related to operating more effectively and more wholly, WHOLLY, in the house occupied by the sign of Aries. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, continuing to work with us to carve out a path in the house occupied by the sign of Taurus in a way that is individual and authentic and right for us. And Jupiter now is in the sign of Gemini till May the 25th. It was in the sign of Taurus, inaugurating a 12-13-year cycle there, but it is now in the sign of Gemini, ending a 12-13-year cycle since, let's just say, I think probably 2012 at this point in time, and I would say 2011, 2012, and beginning a new 12-13-year cycle. And I will talk more about that tomorrow. As I've mentioned to you, the planets, as they move into the sign of Gemini, are initially going to, in terms of the aspects, create 2 trines, which are harmonious kind of flows of energy. As they enter the sign of Gemini, they will trine Pluto in Aquarius and support Pluto's transformation in the Aquarius and to some extent the Capricorn parts of the chart. And they also, after the trine with Pluto, will trine the South Node in Libra, kind of supporting the eclipse axis. After that, as we head towards the second week of June onwards, they will then start to square Saturn and square Neptune. And that creates a greater stress and urgency. And that's what yesterday's video was about. all of that said, as a friendly reminder, till June the 6th, we are still very much in an expansive energy. And this expansiveness is defined by where it is that the Aries eclipses want us to go, the house occupied by the sign of Aries in your chart with the North Node and Chiron are, how you are meant to lean into it in order to experience growth and less stagnation, and the opportunities and the new beginnings being created in the Taurus part of the chart. Remember, we are still in a Taurus month. The last new moon on May the 7th was in the sign of Taurus and remains active till June the 6th. After June the 6th, we have the month of Gemini beginning with the new moon in Gemini. Now, we have planets, the Sun and Venus and Jupiter, in the sign of Gemini, and that's fine. They're making their presence felt there. But right now, a lot of these activities in the sign of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are working together, creating and opening this portal that we're meant to walk towards and through faster and faster, actually. May, June, and July, as I've mentioned to you, are forward-moving months. None of the personal planets are retrograde. They may be related to, the eclipses are the sort of most important direction-setting aspect at any given time. They are moving us forward in this narrative that has been set up for us since last April 2023, when we had the first solar eclipse in Aries, and we really started to feel it as Jupiter conjuncted the North Node in Taurus by the time we were getting to May, June, and as Venus was getting ready to conjunct Mars in Leo, but was not able to. So as we headed towards July, August of last year, a sense of forward movement, and then kind of feeling blocked as Mercury went retrograde. And remember, there's no such thing as an aspect in isolation. You know, Jupiter's transit through Taurus, where it conjuncted the North Node and conjuncted Uranus, is a very different experience than Jupiter conjuncting Gemini, which it is now. Jupiter will trine Pluto. It's an important transit for this week, and I will get to it. Jupiter will trine the South Node. Give me 1 second. Jupiter will trine the South Node, but then Jupiter's transit through Gemini. Sorry, there was one thing. I was thinking ahead, and I started to get preoccupied by. I was starting to get split there for a second. Jupiter will trine both Pluto and the South Node, but so much of this Pluto transit through Gemini is marked by the fact that it's going to square Saturn 3 times. And that's a very different experience than conjuncting the North Node and conjuncting Uranus through Taurus. And I said there's no such thing as a transit in isolation. I'm just focusing on one planet's transit. But the way planets transit and affect each other are all part of one narrative. They affect different aspects and parts of our lives, but it's still all one narrative. And so you can hear it as I'm talking about how it is that trajectories were formed and held back, and then start moving forward again, and then are held back. In the second half of 2023, of course, we had the eclipses of release in the sign of Libra that took us to March of this year. And then the middle of March to the end of April, we had eclipses again and Mercury retrograde. And so May, June, July, forward movement, and May especially marked by forward movement related to the houses occupied by the signs of Aries, Taurus, and to some extent the sign of Gemini. As we head into June, as I've been saying, the acceleration increases, and we actively have to start to take action in order to make, this forward movement a reality. And a lot of the forward movement, I know this, I'm really saying this because there's a perception, I think, floating around in the astrology internetverse that all these trines, May is all hunky-dory. It's not, and even till the beginning of June, a lot of the forward movement that is defined for us at this point in time is as a result of the eclipses in Mercury retrograde since the middle of March of 2023 to the end of April 2023. And some of that has to do with doors, or the door that is open for us, so a sense of opportunity. And a lot of that is going to be signified by A lot of that is going to be signified by the houses occupied by the signs of Aries and Taurus in our birth charts. But it is also that door and the action and the activities that we're meant to take. Sorry about the sirens. They feel so much louder to me when I do a video. I'm going to wait for them to leave, just so I'm less irritated. Also by a sense of necessity, and that sense of necessity is going to be caused by stress and stabilization that the Pisces part of the chart needs. Okay, so the forward movement, this idea of May having us put pressure on us to move forward during the month of May in a way. And remember that if April, from a tarot perspective, was the Hanged Man, May is transformation, the Death card, the end of the old, the beginning of the new. And this end of the old, beginning of the new is very much not only opportunity, but also necessity. Stress and deadlines and things changing and shifting are often much more effective in getting us to get moving in the right direction than an opportunity. And so it's not, yes, there are trines, and we're still, all of this is to say that till June the 6th, which includes this week, even though the planets are starting to move into the sign of Gemini, we're still in this kind of expansive, trining energy and support. And a lot of what you can harvest during a trine often, especially if the trines are following squares, and that's where we're at right now. As the planets moved into the sign of Taurus, they squared Pluto. And as they move into Gemini, they trine Pluto. A lot of the harvesting that we're potentially doing now, or the ease that we're experiencing, and it does have a sense of harvest to it, is as a result of what we were trying to put in place or acting on. A square requires action. A trine requires action too, but it kind of has a more kind of result feeling to it. A trine does. Okay. This week, in each of the three parts of the chart that are expansive, the Aries, Taurus, and the Gemini part of the chart, we have some important aspects. In the Aries part of the chart, tomorrow, we have Mars conjuncting Chiron. Mars, the planet of action, energy, conflict, competition, action, energy. Wherever Mars is where a lot of our energy goes. And Aries is the sign where we had the eclipse on April the 8th, and where we are hosting the eclipses till and feeling their impact till the middle of 2025. We have one more North Node eclipse on March 29th of next year. And with these eclipses, there's always forward, then the eclipses of release in Libra. We had one October 14th of last year. We're going to have one again on October 2nd of this year. And then forward movement again and back and forward. You know, it's kind of true of all planetary movements around a chart. Mars conjuncting Chiron has been operating over the past 10 odd days. And again, it's never quite the day of an aspect as much as it is, for the most part, the time leading up to it. So as you look past, you know, it's interesting, I'm dealing with this illness, allergies or COVID light or whatever it is, as a result of some Mars-related activity related to my 9th house of travel. Mars conjuncting Chiron. Now that's a very, very literal Mars conjuncting Chiron healing. But if we look back 10 days or so, I mean, it puts us to roughly, you know, about the beginning of last week, about the 18th, 19th of May onwards. And its action, it's like after everything related to the eclipses, after we had the sun in Aries, and we had the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, and we had Venus in Aries, and Mercury in Aries, Mars is finally in Aries to say, all right, let's plant the seeds, harvest, let's put some muscle behind it. Mars is the male planet, the testosterone planet, the yang planet. Let's pursue our goals. Let's take action. Let's protect what is valuable. Let's nurture the hunter-gatherer planet, the setting of boundaries planet, the assertive planet, I'm going to protect what is mine. I'm going to provide for what is valuable to me. I'm going to take action. I'm not going to wait to receive. I'm going to make things happen. And the conjunction with Chiron suggests that whether you're dealing with an illness or not, or literal healing or not healing, it has more to do, for me, with the eclipses in Aries themselves and the solar eclipse on April the 8th. So the last 10 days may have seen important action-oriented developments related to the Aries part of your chart, requiring action, energy, activity. So that's in the Aries part of the chart. Now, as the week continues to progress, so that is on May the 29th, tomorrow. On May the 30th, Mercury conjuncts Uranus in Taurus. Again, we had the Sun go through Taurus, and it conjuncted Jupiter and Uranus. We had Venus go through Taurus, and we had Venus conjuncting Jupiter and Uranus. We have Mercury in Taurus, and we're in the new moon month of Taurus, and Mercury will conjunct Uranus. It will conjunct Jupiter, but in Gemini. And eventually, June, after the new moon in Gemini, Mars will come into Taurus. So we're going to have activity and action in the sign of Taurus, and pursuit of goals and protection taking on a greater theme as we head through. And Mars, when it enters Taurus, is going to square Pluto. And I will cover that. It's not happening this week. We're fine. I make it sound like it's something to worry about. Kind of a little bit. There's going to, but it's, as we head towards next, as I've said to you, the further we head into June, the more there's a need for even greater action and application. It's almost like if May's been pushing us, as I've said to you yesterday, if it's pushing us along this narrow diving board, in June, we're going to have to dive. And that's going to mean total commitment to moving forward. And there's something about the second solar eclipse in Aries on April the 8th, conjuncting Chiron, that carries the most momentum out of the three solar eclipses in Aries in 23, 24, and 25. So Mercury conjuncts Uranus. Now, I already addressed this idea or notion of the Sun conjuncting Jupiter in Taurus and Venus conjuncting Jupiter in Taurus, and then them conjuncting Uranus as the luckiest days of the year in my sort of PSA video about, it has more to do with portals and opportunities that have been building over time in conjunction with the other aspects that have been going on since last year than it does with the actual day of the conjunction becoming the luckiest day of the year. But now we have Mercury, the planet of communication, again, travel, communication, etc., getting ready to conjunct Uranus, the right path for you in the Taurus part of the chart. Now, this has already been active for the past week or so, I would say, and is, of course, continuing to be active for the next 48 hours. So either communication, transactions, social media, towards whatever this right path for you is, Mercury-related things, has already been active, or there's something else that's due to come in over the next 48 hours. You can gauge and see where some of the stuff is going. Now, as we head past tomorrow being Wednesday, Mars conjuncting Chiron, Mercury conjuncting Uranus on Thursday, as we head to later in the week, and the week for me ends on Sunday, June the 2nd. Is it June the 2nd? It is June the 2nd. That's when the next set of aspects we need to look at occur. On June the 2nd, we've got Jupiter trining Pluto. And I'm going to cover that more tomorrow. The Sun trining the South Node and Venus trining the South Node. This is why I did this video on the Gemini aspects yesterday, because I thought it was going to be so weird after everything that we've been talking, and all of a sudden we start to talk about the planets in Gemini making these trines. But they're trines. Jupiter trining Pluto Now, again, on the internet, I saw this rare trine between Jupiter and Pluto. It happens often enough. It's going to happen again in 4 years' time. It's not like, a rare trine makes it sound like we're going to have to wait for, another lifetime to experience it again. So just again, take things with a grain of salt when you're dealing with a certain amount of clickbait on the internet. Now, Jupiter, wherever it goes, ending a 12, 13-year cycle, starting a 12, 13-year cycle. I think it's more interesting to observe whatever's been building through Jupiter's transit through Taurus and the personal planets, the Sun and Venus, and to some extent Mercury, transiting through Taurus and making their conjunctions with both Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter was in Taurus since May of last year. It has just moved into Gemini. Jupiter's transits through signs are very often in communication with each other, and I will explain that more. There's certainly something to the notion of, and Jupiter's trine to Pluto has been building for a while. We can certainly say for the past couple of months, this trine to Pluto has been building and building and building. And so it's not like on June the 2nd, lightning will strike. Ending a 12, 13-year cycle, starting a 12, 13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart is somehow really important and contributes to and creates a flow with this transformation that Pluto is trying to make in the Aquarius part of the chart. But it's very preliminary and very mysterious. To me, the energy of these trines, the Sun trining Pluto, Venus trining Pluto, Jupiter trining Pluto, Mercury conjuncting Uranus and then entering Gemini by Monday, the 3rd of June, and then getting ready to trine Pluto. Mercury enters Gemini on the 3rd, on Monday, and trines Pluto on the same day. And then, yup. And so, it all has a very sort of expansive, harvesty feeling. As I said, we are being led forward due to opportunity and necessity. Doors opening and closing. A red carpet being laid out for us and a rug being pulled from under our feet. And these trines have a sense of result and consequence and harvest, but with the Jupiter-Pluto trine, there's also a bit of mystery to this that you're not going to be able to figure out just yet. This trine is happening the first few degrees of both Gemini and Aquarius. Pluto's transit through Aquarius, which takes 18, 19 years, has barely begun. We felt it most between January 20th and February 20th of this year. As a kind of announcement, this is what I'm going to shake up. Fine. Jupiter's transit through Gemini has just begun. Jupiter's in the first few degrees, and so but the actual impact of this trine and this conversation, we're going to have to wait and see practically over the next couple of years, but certainly over the next 13 months to see what it is that Jupiter's opening up for us in the Gemini part of the chart. That we'll be able to look back to and say, oh, this is how it assisted Pluto making its long-term transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart. Now, the Sun and Venus, and ultimately Jupiter and Mercury trining the south node are a little bit more exciting to me and a little bit more interesting to me. And again, continue to extend this conversation that is May-oriented for me. We are not quite in the energy of June, even though the Sun and Venus and Jupiter are in Gemini. A lot of these trines and a lot of these conversations still have this forward movement, Taurus new moon, Aries eclipse energy to it. We're still moving forward. The June 6th new moon hits, and we are off to the races trying to manage and balancing and to-do lists and acceleration and urgency. And pretty soon, tomorrow Mars conjuncts Chiron, but soon enough, in a few days, we're going to start to feel the building of Mars getting ready to enter Taurus and square Pluto. But the Sun and Venus trining the South Node on Sunday. And these transits, the Sun and Venus trining the South Node on Sunday, we're going to start to feel the build-up now. And we've already, even the past couple of days, we've started to feel this build-up. And it's a conversation around what needs to be released in the Libra part of the chart. And it goes back to what was stagnating us or preventing us from moving forward in the Aries part of the chart, especially as we hit the second half, especially between September, October 2023 to the middle of March 2024. We're going to deal with that release again October 2nd to the end of the year of this year. So just have that awareness, particularly October 2nd to about December 2nd or so. But it's really a conversation. The North Node and the South Node are so totally tied that it's very much a conversation with the eclipses. And as I've said to you, and this is part of the reason why I say to you, 2 months after the solar eclipse is resonant. And typically I would say to people, wait for, I say June the 8th, week before, week after, but you can even look at it as the week before and after the June 6th Gemini new moon. And that would put us to, starting about Thursday of this week. And that might be accurate, but let's just, it's an energy that is building now. So what this trine, this harvest, this result, again, a lot of what we're experiencing right now is a sense of inevitability around moving forward on the right path, the right portal. But that right portal, again, I keep saying it again and again, it's both opportunity, but it's also necessity. What you need to do, what you have to do. That was one of the gifts, one of the stresses, and one of the gifts, and one of the opportunities that this time period of April, when we were in this hanged man energy and waiting for Mercury retrograde and the eclipses to accelerate and shift things around for us so we could start to move forward. That is what it was all about. And that is how change is created. I need you to move through this door, but I'm going to start to put the pressure on you in these different ways so that you start to take action and create the new. And deal with what you need to deal with and deal with what is in front of you. And stop being change and momentum. Sometimes change and momentum welcome and make room for a certain amount of fantasy thinking and dreaming. But when, especially as you head into June, things are going to become very, very real. The planet's getting ready to square Saturn. It's going to be time for a certain amount of implementation. So just to summarize this week, we've got Mars conjuncting Chiron tomorrow. Keeps the conversation related to the North Node eclipse in Aries active, the Aries part of your chart. We've been feeling that for the past 10 days or so. The first couple of aspects that I'm going to talk about are aspects that are cresting. So we've been feeling those for the past 10 days or so. Mercury conjuncting Uranus maybe the last week or so, and that's on the 30th. The next three aspects, Jupiter trine Pluto, has a mystery to it. I'll talk about it more tomorrow. But the Sun and Venus trining the South Node, and all these trines are occurring on Sunday, the 2nd of June. But the Sun and Venus trining the South Node, we're really going to start to feel the buildup of this more starting now as we head towards Sunday. And between now and, let's just say, June the 15th, just keep an eye out for what you might feel like are events and occurrences and results and just opportunities and things that are moving us forward in the direction of that North Node eclipse in Aries and making us release what we need to in the South Node eclipses in Libra. Right now, and I keep emphasizing this, even if I were to look past this week into Monday and Tuesday, on Monday, June the 3rd, Mercury enters Gemini and it trines Pluto. And after I do my Jupiter video tomorrow, I will need to do a video to address, and this is going to be important and significant, on June the 4th. We have the Sun conjuncting Venus in Gemini and Mercury conjuncting Jupiter in Gemini. These are still all very expansive conversations, but the Sun conjuncting Venus, June the 4th is when we start to dip into. We need these June the 4th aspects to occur, and it's after June the 4th that we get into June energy and the June 6th energy much more. And that June 6th new moon energy, as I said, the new moon on June the 6th is not nearly as, I don't think that May has been a stress-free month, but I've already addressed that multiple times. This idea of necessity driving us as well as opportunity. But June, the new moon, encapsulates a 28 days that has a real edginess to it. The new moon in Gemini is conjunct Venus, and the Sun will have had its conversation with Venus 2 days before that. But the new moon itself squares Saturn, which signifies a need for action in the sign of Gemini, so that Saturn can achieve what it is trying to achieve in the sign of Pisces. And I'll expand on all of this when we get to that time, but I'm just giving you a heads up, since this is a kind of a weekly overview anyway. And I mean, honestly, I'm doing this on a Tuesday, and I'm looking to next Tuesday, so even though technically the weekly overview is till Sunday, we may as well, right? And the most important aspect that new moon is encoding, that the new moon itself is not making, is Mars squaring Pluto. So we're going to need to, after June the 6th to July the 5th, is very much going to be around making sure that when we dive off that diving board, that we make that dive a success, or as much of a success as we can. Okay, have a wonderful week. I'm sure you can tell that I'm feeling better. If you would like me to take a look at your birth chart and do a personal reading for you, my email address is in the description box below. You can email me there and I can give you information about rates, etc. All my correspondence has been cleared, so you should have received responses if you've written to me. There is a thanks button now available, so if you want to contribute to the channel, you can contribute using that. Thank you to everybody who has contributed. Thank you to everybody who supports this channel and subscribes to it, because even on days and times when I'm sick, you keep me showing up, which is nice and helpful. And especially, and it's just been such a joy to see the channel kind of continue to grow and expand. Speaking of which, especially if you're following me, especially if you're seeing these videos on Facebook or Twitter, please subscribe to. I am going to stop posting those videos there. I kind of want to claim back my social media space to be my social media space and not quite an astrology social media space. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already, and hover over the bell icon next to it and click on the wiggly bell on top so you're notified whenever I do new videos. Tomorrow, the plan is to do the Jupiter transit through Gemini video, and then I need to talk about the Sun-Venus conjunction. All right, more to follow.